All right, I'm not going to just sit here and tell you that the 2024 class will be the best class in history or the best class in the last 5 years or better or worse than last year's class. I'm just going to give you some players that are going to highlight the class, and I'm going to let you make that decision for yourself. Now, the one guy here who folks are going to be talking about nonstop, your league mates probably already know his name. That's Caleb Williams, the dual threat, reigning Heisman winning quarterback out of USC. Now, Caleb Williams will likely highlight the next year's class. He could end up very well being the 101. You could probably nearly lock him in Superflex leagues to that spot, and for very good reason here. Caleb Williams, you'll remember, was the true freshman who unseated Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, and quite frankly, really derailed Spencer Rattler's career, at least in terms of being a Devy value. And folks, remember, Spencer Rattler was one of these quarterbacks that we thought were going to be the top of this year's draft class. Caleb Williams derailed him, and he proved after transferring to USC that it wasn't necessarily just being in Oklahoma that helped him do that. This year at USC, he went 333 for 500. That is a 66% completion rate. He put up 4,537 passing yards and a ridiculous 42-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Now, why so many folks are excited about Caleb Williams is because he also brings the rushing ability to his game. 10 rushing touchdowns last year, about 350 rushing yards, and USC folks did not have a good offensive line. And don't forget too, whenever you're talking about college rushing stats for quarterbacks, sacks count as negative yards. So you can even bake in some extra yardage there. Caleb Williams is going to be the top of the quarterback class next year, and he has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in terms of value that we've seen in recent years. Now, I would say his floor right now is going to be how we felt about Joe Burrow the year he was coming out. Remember, Burrow landed as the consensus quarterback 1, and he definitely had a lot of hype coming out. You could also compare that to Kyler Murray once we knew Kyler Murray was going to be the number 1 overall pick. That's where I think his floor is. And I think the Caleb Williams hype could get as high as Trevor Lawrence. Now, I probably won't grade Caleb Williams as high as Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is the highest rookie grade I've ever given out. But I do think the hype, which means the value, is going to be there. So if you have the opportunity to trade down from a tier, that could potentially get you an opportunity for a top 3, top 5 selection in next year's rookie drafts, that's definitely a risk that I'm willing to take with an eye on Caleb Williams at the top of the class. Now, I said Caleb Williams is probably the 101 in Superflex leagues because I'm not willing to look past Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm not the guy who normally will push a wide receiver in terms of value over a quarterback in Superflex formats, but I might just have to do that with Marvin Harrison Jr. next year. Now, Harrison Jr., yes, of course, is the son of the legendary Marvin Harrison Sr., 6'3", 202, super athletic, explosive, works really well downfield, really consistent hands. Now, we know this recent run of Ohio State wide receivers has been not only very talented, but proven that that talent can translate to the NFL. Think Terry McLaurin, think Chris Olave, think Garrett Wilson, think Jackson Smith and Jigba coming in. Well, Ohio State wide receiver coach Brian Hartline, offensive coordinator now, Brian Hartline, suggested that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player, in his opinion, out of that group of guys.
Top 3 wide receiver talents that you've coached.
Top 3 I've coached. I would say Marvin right now.
Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1.
NFL makeup, NFL prototype, right?
Yeah.
Marvin's that NFL prototype.
So a lot of praise, and for good reason. Marvin Harrison Jr. in his first year on the field pulled in 77 receptions for 1,263 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns for the Buckeyes. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has the opportunity to be the most valuable wide receiver since Jamar Chase. Wouldn't shock me if we consider at the point of rookie draft season a year from now, I wouldn't be shocked if Marvin Harrison Jr. is consensus more valuable than Jamar Chase when he goes off of rookie boards. So again, any opportunity you have to give yourself some dart throws to get into these top few picks, that value is really going to hold here over the next year and through next rookie draft season. Next up, 6'2", 238, Braelon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. Now, I don't think Braelon Allen is a consensus running back one in next year's class yet. In fact, there's not really a consensus running back one, but I am going to give you 5 different running backs to talk about here. Honing in, though, on Braelon Allen, this is a player I love. As both a true freshman and a true sophomore at Wisconsin, he put up over 1,200 rushing yards in each season. Braelon Allen this year is going to have the ability to put up a similar level of production in a quasi-air raid system. Now, why that's important is it's going to show NFL front offices that he is a versatile back that can produce at a high level in multiple systems. Braelon Allen last year had 12 rushing touchdowns as a true freshman, 11 rushing touchdowns. There is no running back in this class that combines the type of explosiveness, downfield acceleration, and power with a frame that large, right? How many running backs do we know in this year's class that are 225 plus? None that we're considering at the top of the draft, right? That's not even Bijan territory. Braelon Allen is much more bulked up and has the ability here, has the potential to be what we consider to be a lost value, that true workhorse running back. So Braelon Allen, for me, I think he's going to fall in the range that we're currently valuing Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know if that's consensus right now. He might be a little bit more where we value Jonathan Taylor. And I do want to proceed here with a little bit of a reminder. We didn't value Jonathan Taylor as the running back one consensus in that class. There was a lot of different guys there at the top, and you ended up hitting on a few of them. And there were some grenade throws in there too. Not to throw a stray here at Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A lot of hype justifiably for this year's tight end class. We have 4 guys who realistically could end up being first-round picks. Next year, the depth at the tight end position isn't as good, but Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia, will be more valuable than any tight end in this class, and it's not going to be particularly close. The way that I'm comparing Brock Bowers' value is if we could thought of the way that we loved Kyle Pitts, but proceeded with a little bit of rationale. All right, Brock Bowers is a huge target. He is a yoked up tight end that is going to run through linebackers and shows athleticism, pass catching ability, great body positioning. That's going to translate well to a decent volume load. I mean, we could seriously see this guy getting 75 plus targets from the start of his NFL career, and definitely can end up being one of the rare tight ends that puts up double-digit touchdowns. That's major fantasy football value. So even though we're not talking about any of the tight ends in this year's class as top 5 picks, I do think next year when we're thinking about Brock Bowers, we're going to be thinking about a consensus top 5 rookie draft selection. All right, let's get back to quarterback here because next year's class is going to be really good. I did feel like Caleb Williams needed to be talked about in his own tier at this point, but there's 2 quarterbacks who I do think could either push into Caleb Williams' tier or be a really nice 1B to his 1A. Starting here with UNC quarterback Drake Maye. Now, Drake Maye is definitely coming with a prototypical frame that NFL front offices are going to love, coming in at 6'5", 220. Now, his first season as a starter for the Tar Heels, he went 342 for 517. That's a 66% completion rate. He finished 5th in the Heisman voting, and all the way up to, I would say, about the last 2 weeks of the season, it was pretty neck and neck with Caleb Williams in terms of who was going to end up winning the Heisman this year. 4,321 yards in what I love, a 38-7 touchdown interception ratio. Drake Maye has a good command of the offense, good arm strength, solid mechanics, and I think we haven't scratched the surface of what we're going to see from Drake Maye. I think he's the quarterback prospect that has the chance to dramatically improve his stock. I think if the draft happens today, he's probably a top 15 pick. I think when the draft happens next year, he's probably a top 5 pick. A lot to like about him. I think we're going to end up valuing him somewhere in between CJ Stroud in this year's class and the aforementioned Joe Burrow, right? So Joe Burrow's the high end of his range. Think about a player who could end up being, that guy that we feel comfortable being in the command of an offense with a lot of good weapons around him, some athleticism to his game, and definitely some of that game-breaking command of the offense specialness. Or he could be more in the CJ Stroud range. Now, CJ Stroud is going to end up as my pre-draft quarterback too. I like CJ Stroud. So we're talking about a guy with a good frame, a lot of tools. You put him in the right spot, he can distribute. He's going to end up being a quarterback 1, right? So definitely a lot to like about Drake Maye. All right, how about mega quarterback, 5-star recruit, Quinn Ewers, 6'3", 206. Quinn Ewers did easily win the quarterback battle for the University of Texas Longhorns, so he will be QB1 heading into next season. Now, Quinn Ewers was much hyped coming out of high school, ends up at Ohio State, transfers after a year, comes back to Texas where he played high school football, and kind of had a legendary status before he even set on the field. Now, it was a little bit of an up and down season. Quinn Ewers played hurt a lot, but if you go back, watch the beginning of the Alabama game, that first quarter of tape before he got injured is some of the best quarterback tape for any prospect this year. And again, it was against Alabama, one of the best secondaries in the country this past year. Overall in the season, Ewers ended up with 2,177 passing yards with 15 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in just 10 games. Ewers is the player that has the best chance to make a huge jump in his value. If Quinn Ewers hits, if everything clicks into place, if his mechanics settled in, he has the arm strength, he has enough mobility, or he could challenge Caleb Williams to be the first quarterback off the board in next year's NFL draft. He's not there yet, but I'm saying that's the high end here. So I'm kind of comping him to Justin Fields. Justin Fields, my second highest rookie quarterback prospect that I've ever had coming out. And he was that 1B, a really good value in the 2021 class there, right next to Trevor Lawrence. So I think Quinn Ewers could end up being, Caleb Williams' Justin Fields, for lack of a better comparison. I've given you 3 quarterbacks here that definitely justify top 7, 8 rookie picks at minimum in next year's draft. So I hope that's starting to fill out the value here and why you can really lean into the idea of building for next year with those 2024 picks. 5'10", 210 running back out of The Ohio State University, TreVeyon Henderson. Here's an interesting prospect. We have a little bit of a range here for what Henderson could end up as in terms of fantasy football value. Now, I think Henderson could be as low as Cam Akers and as high as Jonathan Taylor. Now, that is the same draft class, and you'll remember there was a pretty decent range between that, a solid tier gap. What I love about TreVeyon Henderson is his power, his ability to navigate in between the tackles, nice shifty footwork, and when he hits that second gear, he can explode downfield. Now, TreVeyon Henderson hit the ground running literally as a true freshman for the Buckeyes, 1,248 rushing yards on just 183 attempts. That's 6.8 yards per carry, and he had 15 touchdowns for the Buckeyes. Last season, pretty disappointing, looked a lot less explosive out there. Multiple injuries were reported. It looked like he just was not playing healthy. So we need a healthy 2023 collegiate season from TreVeyon Henderson. But if he does put that out, we absolutely could be talking about a guy in that top tier of running back territory here. How about his Ohio State teammate with Emeka Egbuka? All right, this wide receiver might slide a little under the radar because he's not going to grade out as high compared to his Ohio State counterpart that we talked about earlier, Marvin Harrison Jr. But as we know, folks, that should not let you stop from valuing the, quote, second best wide receiver at Ohio State, which is why I have a ton of Chris Olave on my rosters, right? But when we're looking at Emeka Egbuka, we're talking fast, we're talking athletic, we're talking great catch radius, 74 receptions for 1,151 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2022. My comp here, I mentioned him already, Chris Olave or even Devonta Smith, right? These guys that floated a little bit under the radar, but still ended up being great values. So I think Emeka Egbuka is a great reason to think I don't need to just trade for the 2024 picks that I think are going to be early. How about a contender that's looking to get aggressive now? You're not a contender yet. Let's grab some back end of the first round picks because you never know how far a guy like Emeka Egbuka is going to slide. Will Shipley, 5'11", 200 pounds, running back out of Clemson, over 1,900 rushing yards in his first 2 seasons playing for the Tigers. And let's be honest, playing in a pretty broken offense here over the last 2 years. I love Will Shipley's pass catching ability here. That's translated to 54 receptions and over 300 yards in the last 2 seasons. If we're looking at a range for the type of value he could put forward, I'd say high end is Jahmyr Gibbs in the way that we value his explosiveness and pass catching ability. I'd say middle range is Travis Etienne, which is still a very valuable late first round selection, right? In terms of his home run playability. And I would say low end is Rachaad White, an early to mid second round pick, explosive, and he's going to have those truthers that push his value forward. So Will Shipley's not going to be that name you're going to hear in the same light as a Braelon Allen or a TreVeyon Henderson, but I do think he's somebody who's still going to carry really nice value into next season. Super explosive, can go up and get it, great hands. I am describing Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver out of the University of Texas. Now 6'1", 160, so a little bit of a slight frame, but he doesn't play small. 62 receptions for 981 yards and 12 touchdowns as a true freshman. Now his stats dropped a little bit last year, just in terms of that rotating quarterback situation that I alluded to with Quinn Ewers getting injured last season, but maybe we pair these two guys up together in terms of their value. If Quinn Ewers can make that jump, Xavier Worthy is going to be right there with him as the guy catching his big plays, right? He is a big play home run guy, which is why I think Xavier Worthy's hype could get up to Jameson Williams type hype, right? And Williams probably went anywhere from 106 to 112 in your rookie drafts last year. So I think he could get that hype. I also could see Xavier Worthy even sliding into the second round here and having what I call T. Higgins value. There's always a wide receiver that I love at the turn of the 1-2 every year. Good value. Next year, it could be Xavier Worthy. So, folks, let's take it even further. This is my golden rule. I'm doing this 365 days a year. I'm trading for second round picks because there's always good value there. You like power backs? Here's another one for you. 6'2", 225, Raheim Rocket Sanders out of the University of Arkansas. Now they call him Rocket because he is powerful smashing in between the tackles. And when he hits that second level of the field, it is game over because he's going to break off a big one on you. A pretty dangerous combination for a guy coming in at that size. 1,443 rushing yards last year for the Razorbacks on 222 attempts, which is 6.5 yards per carry. And like I mentioned, powerful, explosive, and really effective at the goal line. I'm comping him here to J.K. Dobbins. And now I know we kind of feel this way or that way about J.K. Dobbins because of the injury and when he's been on the field and the amount of usage in Baltimore. But think about how in that draft class, J.K. Dobbins was just that next best guy in a tier down, right? And I think that's going to be Rocket Sanders. I don't know that we'll consider him to be a tier 1 guy. But again, at the back end of the early second round, if you're getting Rocket Sanders, man, that's going to be a good addition to your roster. Last one here. Could not leave the episode without talking about Donovan Edwards out of Michigan, 6'0", 202. We're talking explosive. We're talking twitchy. We're talking athletic. When we're talking nice pass catching option here for the Wolverines and for a future NFL franchise. Now, his production was really good last year on just 140 attempts, 991 yards. That's 7.1 yards per rush, 7 touchdowns, 38 career receptions. Donovan Edwards is going to be really interesting because he's probably going to put up a similar stat line with similarly low usage because Blake Corum is coming back, and Michigan just uses multiple running backs, kind of like we talk about Georgia using multiple running backs a lot. So Donovan Edwards, we're talking about an explosive, athletic, twitchy back that's going to come into the NFL with pretty fresh legs. That's an exciting combination here. I think his hype could, end up being similar to Javonte Williams, just in terms of the folks who love Donovan Edwards, and it could really shoot his value up. Or on the worst end, he's a James Cook type value. I do think he's going to be more of a volume type guy at the next level than that. But I think that's a pretty realistic range there for Donovan Edwards. And he's number 12 that I've talked about. Just 12 guys. I could have gone in deeper, but I wanted to give you an idea of the type of guys that can be coming off the board in your 2024 rookie drafts. So again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the best class in history. It's better than 2023. It's this or it's that. But hopefully what you took away here is that as you're moving through your rookie drafts, if you don't like the players available, trade down, get extra picks, whether it's first round picks, whether it's second round picks. If you can move out of the mid to late first round this year and get a first and a second this year, take advantage of the draft. Folks are eager. All right. They're excited. And that means they're creating value for you to take advantage of here. And we're playing long-term and we're leaning into the strength here of this excellent 2024 rookie class.